It has been a year since the Nintendo Switch's own Smash Bros. Game has been released, and over time it has had a number of updates and changes, some familiar, some different. But is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate still the definition of everyone's here and still a good time on the Switch? Well, let's revisit this game and keep on engaging in battle once again. The most prominent announcements that have surely got people excited are the DLC fighters. There are 5 as of this upload, with more surprisingly on the way, to possibly exceed the number of DLC fighters in Wii U, which was 7. These fighter inclusions were really not expected, or people wanted them, but it probably wasn't likely to happen. Piranha Plant is an odd inclusion considering it's a generally small enemy in the Mario games, but once you get a hang of it, it can be potentially deadly. Trust me, I know from online experience. The other ones are mostly from franchises that one wouldn't expect to be represented in Smash Bros. It is very unlikely Persona 5, or any main Persona game for that matter, will be released outside of a Sony platform. But the protagonist Joker was just included because he would be fun to play with. And he is, especially if we are Sem Persona that appears for a short time when taking enough damage or when using the down special. Banjo-Kazooie also has to be discussed briefly before the other DLC characters. Banjo originally was on the Nintendo 64 before going over to the Microsoft consoles, but Nintendo and Microsoft's strong partnership made the impossible possible. Banjo is essentially a nimble heavyweight, which is a minor disappointment, but he's a fun character to play with, and above all, his moves and animations are great callbacks to the original Nintendo 64 games. For Hero and Terry, however, are where the DLC content actually seems to diverge from the franchise's roots of accessibility. For Hero has a variety of RPG moves that can be chosen generally at random with a down special move. There are actually several potential RPG moves to remember that can be used, including the seemingly cheap KO instant Thwack, and so it takes longer to master the hero than other characters. Even Terry is somewhat similar in terms of difficulty. In a similar fashion to the Fatal Fury games that he originated from, Terry can perform specific techniques with specific directions combined with the attack button. These are essentially slightly more powerful versions of his base special moves. Plus he can do really powerful special techniques when having taken enough damage. Terry and Hero feel more complex, and again, don't feel as accessible. Even Joker's Arsene Persona or Banjo's Golden Feather Count are easy to understand. Still, it is cool to get stages, with the exception of Piranha Plant, with all these characters. Spiral Mountain has some nice dynamics and especially references, while Mementos changes colour depending on which music track is there. Blue for Persona 3, yellow for 4, and of course red for 5. The other 2 stages look lovely but aren't really anything special gameplay wise. What is also a really nice inclusion with these fighters is their own spirit board, so you can fight 4 spirits like the Phantom Thieves, the Slimes in Dragon Quest and so on. Speaking of spirits, the game continues to surprise, such as a Resident Evil themed event. That's surely the closest we'll get to Resident Evil characters fighting in this crossover game. The other changes to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate are more familiar, though with some changes. Around the time the DLC of a character Joker came out, and seemingly crashed the servers, mind you, there was the Stage Builder, a feature that's essentially been around since Super Smash Bros. Brawl. In contrast to that game, Ultimate Stage Builder has more features and is a little more similar to the Wii U game Stage Builder. You can choose a stage size, stage background, music, put in platforms and hazards and so on. Much like in Super Mario Maker 2, it is easier to do with handheld mode. Unlike that game though, the amount of options is mostly limited. That being said, much of the talent being displayed online is almost mind-boggling, including Spiral Mountain before it became an actual stage, or even the Keyblade of Kingdom Hearts. Above all, the Stage Builder is fun, especially to create stages to be really mean to other players, such as the AI. You can share your stages with others, as well as Mii Fighters, replays, and edited videos. Alongside Stage Builder, Home Run Contest is back, though it should have probably been there close to or at the beginning. If you enjoyed it previously, you'll like it in Ultimate, though the bat doesn't appear for a few seconds. With the updates, there are surely some improvements or fixing of the previous problems, right? Well, it is hard to say really. Changes to characters such as decreasing or extending time of certain attacks, moves and so on may affect competitive play, though it's the thought that counts. Online play has new options like a tournament mode, including a specific tourney that was featured for the release of Pokemon Sword and Shield, and the battle arenas had some much needed customization and message options. There appeared to be less lag, maybe I was just lucky, but it still existed alongside communication errors. Again, even the smallest of problems hold the online options back from being truly entertaining and even competitive Smash Bros. Fun. Matchmaking, an issue mentioned previously, was addressed, though it's hard to say if that's better balanced. Outside of DLC fighters and stages, stage builder, home run contests and changes to characters and online play, it is still Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as it is, and it's still fun to play and just start a random crazy match on whatever stage and with whatever items and characters. To be fair, the World of Light mostly feels like it was good for just one playthrough, even if you can use the DLC fighters and New Game Plus. Much of the unpredictable nature and excitement is now mostly gone after all fighters are unlocked, with much of the intrigue left to gain new music tracks, Mii costume parts, and of course the spirits, with the Spirit Board just as much of a fun gamble, and possibly more fun than the World of Light. Not that it wasn't fun. Classic mode still has the same general structure, bonus round, and length for each character, but still seeing how each character gets their own fights and boss, not to mention just trying over and over again to win on the highest difficulty, is a great single player time sink. Multiplayer is still the main thing to come back to in this game, and how can you not when you want to be the best at Smash? No, get away! There is still plenty of content for non-veterans to sink their teeth into though. Overall, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is worth turning on in whatever spare time one gets just to have one more match. Oh, and did I mention Joker is the only other character besides Final Fantasy VII's Cloud to get his own victory screen? Thank you so much for watching. As of this upload, there are more DLC fighters and stuff to come to this game that we really don't know anything about. So, not sure if I'll talk about this game's changes in the future. Super Mario Maker 2 has been updated to include more parts in 8-bit Link, so maybe I should make a video about that. I also want to thank everyone who played multiplayer, offline and online with me. It was fun. But what is that player doing? I don't know.